You know what's truly interesting about people with extremely high IQs? It's the fact that their very existence often makes society feel deeply intimidated and insecure. Most of us always picture a genius as someone admired by the crowd, constantly and confidently shining. We think they will solve grand problems out loud, making the whole room marvel at their brilliance. But the most profound psychological studies tell a completely different story. The behavioral patterns of people with extremely high IQs do not bring a sense of safety to the masses. In fact, many of their habits go completely against what society expects and desperately wants to control. After decades of research, cognitive psychologists realize that a high IQ doesn't just make a person smarter, it changes the entire lens through which that person decodes this world. And it is exactly that core difference that creates a hidden threat to ordinary social orders. Here are 11 psychological traits that explain why brilliant minds make society so afraid. Sign 1. They spend way too much time alone. The first trait is an intense craving for stillness and solitude. Society is built on herd mentality, where people cling to one another to feel safe. When a highly intelligent person voluntarily separates from the crowd, it makes the crowd feel threatened. They aren't alone because they hate people, but because their brains need space to process massive amounts of information. Their prefrontal cortex operates at maximum capacity when undisturbed by the meaningless noise of the herd. For a genius brain, solitude isn't sadness. It is raw fuel. Society fears this because a person who doesn't need the crowd is a person who cannot be manipulated by the crowd. Intelligent people don't recharge through superficial social gatherings. They recharge from stillness. And an individual who is completely independent within their own inner world is always a terrifying mystery to the rest. Sign 2. Their minds never truly switch off. The second trait is a constantly running brain that shatters any illusion of peace for those around them. Society prefers easily satisfied people who know how to turn off their brains after work to enjoy simple pleasures. But people with very high IQs cannot stop thinking, evaluating, overturning problems, and building hypotheses. This relentless mental energy makes those near them feel pressured and secondarily exhausted. Psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski called this a psychomotor overexcitability in the form of thought. Society is wary of them because they constantly see the risks, the flaws, and the hard truths that the crowd is deliberately ignoring. A dense neural network causes their brains to constantly connect seemingly unrelated ideas together. The ability to see through the fog of reality makes them disruptors of the world's peaceful slumber. Sign 3. They feel things more deeply than they show. The crowd often assumes that smart people are cold, emotionless, and purely rational. But actual research points to a truth that baffles society. They possess incredibly intense emotional sensitivity. Their profound resonance with beauty, social injustice, or the pain of others exposes the superficiality of the crowd. When a smart person becomes outraged over a moral issue that normal people consider trivial, they unintentionally humiliate society. Society fears this depth because it demands an absolute honesty that most people dare not face. They don't react according to standard dramatic templates, but keep that fierce intensity churning inside. Their emotionally heavy silence sometimes creates a suffocating atmosphere for shallow souls. Sign 4. They are entirely comfortable saying, "I don't know." This trait directly threatens the power structures and the false pride of the masses. Our society worships blind confidence and definitive answers, even if those answers are completely wrong. When a brilliant mind humbly acknowledges the limits of its knowledge, it shatters the illusion of omniscience. Unlike the Dunning-Kruger effect, high IQ people understand the world's complexity so well that they dare not jump to conclusions. When they utter, "I don't know," it is not weak hesitation, but the absolute precision of thought. The crowd feels afraid, because if even a brilliant person isn't certain, then the crowd's blind faith suddenly becomes ridiculous. Intelligent people refuse to participate in the game of baseless ego boosting played by those around them. This naturally strips the armor of power away from those who always speak with absolute certainty. Sign 5. They struggle to find people on their wavelength. Intelligent people often unintentionally become mirrors reflecting the shallowness of everyday interactions. Society connects through small talk and harmless topics to create a sense of safety and belonging. But a high IQ brain craves deep conversations, going to the very bottom of an idea without turning back. When they quietly withdraw from a bland conversation, the crowd feels that rejection and hastily labels it arrogance. In reality, it is the stimulus poverty from the environment that leaves them intellectually starved. They are forced to lower themselves and adjust their frequency so as not to make others feel inferior or stupid. The truth is, society fears them because no one likes the feeling of being inadequate to keep up with a conversation. And the subtle withdrawal of the intelligent person leaves a void that makes the crowd feel personally judged. Sign 6. They change their minds when the evidence changes. In a society where people cling to opinions to form their identities, cognitive flexibility is a danger. Average people view admitting they are wrong as a personal collapse and a loss of honor. But for people with high IQs, beliefs are just working theories, ready to be discarded if new data appears. They do not tie their ego to always being right or defending a hollow sense of pride. This cold shift in stance based on accuracy makes society feel they are elusive and unmanageable. Society craves blind loyalty to factions, but great minds are loyal only to the truth. Their ability to continuously update their cognitive machinery makes rigid, conservative people feel fundamentally threatened. They bravely break down old belief systems, and that is always the action that terrifies the crowd the most. Sign 7. They observe far more than they say. The crowd is usually on high alert around quiet people who sit in the corner of the room silently gathering data. While others compete to show off their egos, the high IQ person steps back, reading every hidden dynamic. They clearly see who is manipulating whom, where the real tension lies, and the true meaning behind superficial platitudes. This sharp ability to read social cues turns them into walking, talking lie detectors. People fear the silent ones not because they have nothing to contribute, but because people don't know what that brain is analyzing. In that silence, the intelligent person has already painted a complete picture of everyone's true motives. Being seen through is one of the greatest primal fears of human beings in social relationships. And those with high IQs are the cold, sharp eyes that can strip away every fake social mask. Sign 8. They procrastinate hardest on the work that matters most. Society judges people by their compliance to the productivity wheel and their ability to churn out work like mindless machines. But exceptional brains frequently fall into a state of paralysis before groundbreaking, highly personal projects. This isn't laziness, it is an obsession with perfection and an acutely sharp awareness of the problem's complexity. They see every flaw, every painful gap between the grand vision in their head and the actual achievable result. Their procrastination is inadvertently a silent rebellion against a society that worships quantity and average production values. They would rather not start than create something mediocre, just to meet superficial industrial standards. This disobedience shakes the value system of those who pride themselves on simply being blindly busy. Society fears their internal complexity because it exposes the mechanical nature of work driven purely by schedules. Sign 9. They get bored faster than anyone else. The crowd maintains order by following repetitive routines and comforting each other in mind-numbing stability. But the intelligent person's brain demands a massive amount of new informational stimulus to keep dopamine from plummeting. Their rapid boredom is a direct critique of the blandness of daily life that society constantly praises. They cannot stand meaningless meetings, bureaucratic processes, or cookie-cutter expectations that suffocate life. Their restless energy threatens to disrupt the status quo, making those clinging to comfort zones feel deeply unsettled. The fact that they constantly switch jobs, change hobbies, or abandon secure positions is seen by the crowd as impulsive and ungrateful. But in reality, they are just following the instinct to seek truth and challenge, driven by a brain born to break limits. Sign 10. They question themselves more than anyone could imagine. In a society that promotes dominance and inflated egos, the self-doubt of a genius is a terrifying paradox. If the smartest people in the room constantly question the validity of their own thoughts, what is this world's order based on? Their profound understanding of the world opens up dark areas of uncertainty that normal people never see. They apply a brutal standard to themselves, a standard that no one else in the room could endure. Society doesn't know how to deal with people who possess intellectual power, yet dismantle that power with genuine doubt. This intellectual fragility destroys the image of the rigid, omnipotent leader that the crowd always wants to submit to and lean on. It inadvertently forces society to wake up and think for itself, which is something the masses always avoid at all costs. Sign 11. They carry a quiet sense of not quite belonging. The final trait is the one that binds all the others together, creating the grand isolation of a brilliant mind. They live with a persistent awareness that they are always out of sync with their surroundings, their peers, and humanity at large. Society operates on a mechanism of assimilating or eliminating outsiders, the glitches that refuse to fit into the common gear. High IQ people experience the world at a resolution so sharp it far exceeds what this social system can provide or tolerate. The crowd instinctively senses this mismatch and often defends itself by labeling them eccentric or problematic. The truth is, the crowd fears them because their existence proves that the shallow reality we cling to is not the only limit. The smartest people possess an inner life so deep that it cannot be fully articulated through ordinary language. And because they cannot be controlled, assimilated, or understood, society automatically chooses to be on guard and pushes them out of the safety circle. The greatest irony about these 11 signs is how society deliberately misinterprets them to protect its own fragile ego. The one who craves stillness is called antisocial. The restless mind is deemed anxiously unstable. The silent observer is seen as sinister, and the one who changes their mind for the truth is considered untrustworthy. But beneath that labeled shell is a thinking machine born to challenge the most solid boundaries society has set. An extremely high IQ isn't just about solving a math problem faster. It is about seeing through the entire illusion of this world without any protective filter. That power is too massive, too naked, and that is precisely why the presence of a superior intellect always quietly makes society tremble. If you saw a reflection of yourself in these lines today, leave a comment about what makes you feel the most misunderstood by society. I read every single comment, and if this video helped give a name to the feeling of being lost for so long, share it with someone who needs to understand. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next video exposing deep psychological truths. Goodbye and see you next time.